Ava Merrick had learned early in life that boundaries weren't walls, they were survival. At 26, she was a single mom with a child she loved more fiercely than the breath she pulled into her lungs, and a past she refused to let define her again. Her son, little Rowan, had just turned 4, bright-eyed, sensitive, clingy in a way only children with soft hearts and turbulent beginnings tended to be. Ava carried him on her hip most days, not because she had to, but because he felt safest that way. The town of Riverbend Oaks was small enough that everyone knew everyone else, except for one man, the stranger who had stepped into their quiet rhythm 2 months ago and caused whispers to stir like dust in sunlight. His name was Beckett Hale, billionaire investor, tech prodigy, a man used to getting within reach of anything he wanted. He arrived in town without announcement, without entourage, and without the tailored arrogance people expected of his kind. But Ava didn't care who he was. Wealth meant nothing to her now. Wealth had ruined her before. That afternoon, she stood inside Mayor's Market, Rowan perched on her hip while she scanned the shelf of canned goods. She was exhausted working double shifts at the bakery, studying online at night, patching together a life for Rowan one paycheck at a time. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, flour still under her fingernails, her body humming from fatigue and the heaviness of unspoken fears that never fully left her. Rowan tugged gently at her sweater. "Mama juice." Ava kissed his forehead. "We'll get your juice, little star. Just a second." When she reached upward, her fingers skimmed the bottom edge of a can she couldn't quite grasp. Before she could try again, a hand large, steady, and unfamiliar reached past her shoulder. She didn't turn. She didn't breathe. Her chest locked as if hit with a memory she'd buried so deep it should have stayed dead. "Don't," she said sharply. "Don't touch me." The hand withdrew instantly. Ava spun around, heart hammering. Beckett Hale stood behind her, the can in his hand, his expression startled but soft. He wasn't close enough to be threatening, but close enough to ignite something old and unwanted in her bones. Rowan clung tighter, small fingers digging into the fabric of her sweater. "I'm sorry," Beckett said quietly, lowering his hand. "I didn't mean to startle you. I just saw you reaching." Ava swallowed, ashamed of the tremble in her voice. "I don't need help." He nodded once, not defensive, not patronizing, just understanding in a way she didn't expect. "Of course, my mistake." He gently set the can on the lower shelf and stepped back, giving her a wide berth before turning toward the produce aisle. Ava exhaled shakily, pressing a kiss to Rowan's hair. "Mama's okay," she whispered, but she wasn't, not really. Being touched without warning, no matter how harmless still, triggered the shadows of a past she refused to speak about. She pushed the cart forward, hyper-aware of Beckett's presence, even though he'd already walked away. It wasn't that she disliked him. If anything, he had always been polite when their paths crossed. Too polite. He held the door for her at the post office, paid for an elderly couple's groceries without drawing attention, helped fix Mrs. Alder's fallen fence without accepting a thank you pie in return. He wasn't the problem. Men, in general, were. She and Rowan approached the juice aisle, and just as she grabbed a carton, Rowan reached too far and knocked over a stack of small apples. They rolled across the floor like marbles. "Oh no," Ava crouched, but Rowan squirmed in her arms and slipped. Before she could catch him, Rowan tumbled sideways. What happened next was so fast she didn't register it until it was over. A strong pair of arms swept in, not touching her, not brushing her, only scooping up Rowan before his head hit the floor. Ava froze. Rowan blinked, upside down in Beckett Hale's arms, his tiny hands grasping the fabric of the billionaire's crisp navy shirt. "Got you, buddy," Beckett murmured, lifting him gently to his chest. Ava didn't move. For a second, she couldn't. "Is he okay?" Beckett asked, eyes on Rowan, not her. Rowan rested his head on Beckett's shoulder, like he'd known him for years. Ava felt her throat tighten painfully. Her son didn't warm up to strangers ever, but here he was, clinging to a billionaire she had just snapped at minutes earlier. Ava reached out, voice soft but strained. "Rowan, baby, come here." But Rowan held tighter. "Up," he whispered to Beckett. Ava's heart cracked wide open, equal parts fear and disbelief swirling inside her. Beckett lifted his eyes hesitant. "Do you want me to hand him to you?" "Yes," she said too quickly. He doesn't usually, he never—" Her voice failed. Beckett shifted Rowan carefully, making sure not to brush against Ava as he transferred the child back into her arms. "He's safe," Beckett said gently. "Just a scare." Ava nodded, unable to speak through the tightness in her chest. Her son burrowed his face into her neck, but Ava could still feel the ghost of his warmth on Beckett's shoulder. "I'm really sorry again about earlier," Beckett added softly. "I should have asked before reaching for anything near you." "You didn't, it wasn't your fault," Ava whispered. "I just don't like surprises." He gave a small nod. "Understood." He stepped away again, but this time Ava watched him leave, her breath uneven, her mind rattled by the image of her son, her fiercely guarded, deeply cautious little Rowan, resting so easily in another man's arms, a man she barely knew, a man she had just told not to touch her, but who had touched the most precious part of her world without hesitation, and with more gentleness than she expected from anyone. When she finally left the store, Rowan asleep in her arms, Ava kept replaying one impossible image, Rowan choosing Beckett Hale, and the warm, steady way Beckett had held him like he'd done it 1,000 times. Ava didn't sleep that night. Rowan did peacefully, curled beside her with his stuffed fox tucked under his arm, but Ava lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of what happened at the store. She kept seeing Rowan's tiny body tipping sideways, her panic rising too slow, her arms too late, and then Beckett appearing out of nowhere, moving faster than she ever could, catching her son, like he had been waiting for that exact moment. Why had Rowan trusted him so instantly? Why had she felt something warm and unsteady in her chest when Beckett held him? Why did she keep thinking about the way Beckett didn't flinch when she snapped at him? How he still helped her without a trace of resentment? By morning, Ava felt heavy with questions she didn't want the answers to. She had a rule: no men near Rowan, no men near her heart, no exceptions. But Beckett Hale wasn't a rule she had prepared for. The next afternoon, Ava walked Rowan to the small community park. She needed air, sunlight, anything to clear her thoughts. Rowan toddled toward the swings, humming to himself as he pushed his fox on the seat like it was a friend. Ava smiled softly. "Want me to push you, Star?" But Rowan pointed behind her instead. "Him." Ava turned. Beckett Hale stood at the park entrance, hands in his pockets, dressed simply dark tee, worn jeans, expression warm but unsure. He hesitated when she caught his eye, almost as if he considered leaving. Ava's pulse skipped. He approached slowly. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was meeting someone about the property near Archer Road, but they canceled. I saw you both here. Thought I'd say hi." Rowan ran toward him before Ava could respond. He hugged Beckett's leg, like the man had been part of their world forever. Ava's stomach twisted. "Rowan, honey." "It's okay," Beckett said softly, kneeling down to Rowan's height. "Hi, buddy." Rowan lifted his arms, clear, simple trust. Ava froze. Beckett looked at her first, always her first. "Is it all right if I pick him up?" Those 7 words hit Ava harder than anything else that week. Consent, respect, choice. Things she rarely received from anyone in her past. Ava swallowed the knot in her throat. "Yes, it's okay." Beckett lifted Rowan gently, settling him on his hip as naturally as breathing. Rowan giggled, tapping Beckett's cheek with his little fingers. "You're good with him," Ava murmured before she could stop herself. Beckett's smile was small, almost sad. "I used to volunteer at a children's center before my life. Got complicated." Complicated. The word sat heavy in the air. Ava didn't pry. He didn't ask about her, past either. They just existed there for a moment, her watching her son trusting a stranger, and the stranger holding him with a quiet tenderness she had not expected. "Do you want to join us?" Ava asked, surprising even herself. Beckett blinked. "Are you sure?" Her voice cracked, but she nodded. "Yes." They walked together, Ava on one side, Beckett carrying Rowan on the other, an unfamiliar scene that felt wrong and right at the same time. Ava kept glancing at them, her heart caught in a tug of war between fear and a hope she'd never allowed herself to feel. Beckett finally spoke softly. "Ava, you don't have to trust me. Not quickly, not ever, but I'd never hurt your son." Something in his voice made Ava look at him fully for the first time. "I know," she whispered, and the truth of it scared her more than anything. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Rowan rested his head on Beckett's shoulder again, eyes fluttering sleepily. Beckett looked at Ava with a question only she could answer. Ava nodded, and in that single nod, something inside her shifted, something she wasn't ready for, but something she couldn't push away anymore. Because for the first time in 4 years, someone other than her had held Rowan safely. And for the first time in longer, someone had held her trust gently too.